Continuing with our super small bore, as we're calling it, or Super 998. This is the Gearbox, and we were talking about the process I go through with parts selection, and look what I found here. I looked at these very carefully, looking for the cleanest engagement dogs, you know, the points up here that kind of get hammered, the grinding noise when the synchros go away. And looking at these carefully, I decided, you know, I had a nice one stashed away, and I'm glad I pulled it out because it had actually gotten damp and gotten a little layer of rust going. The ball bearings rusted. You gotta be very careful of that. If they lose their surface, it'll always be real notchy, or you might even wear one out completely eventually. But look at this. I've talked about this before briefly. It's hard to see in camera, but here's one I was, looking at these. It's pretty decent. The teeth are in pretty good shape. It's fresh out of a box, and so it's very smooth and works nicely. But look at and someone installed this piece, this inner hub, upside down. This unit would never go into second, no synchro or not. This prevents that synchro from putting the proper load on the cone of the gear. So that's why this gearbox failed. No matter what they did, they couldn't get it to go into second. And I was looking at them to figure out. I remember the long side. If you look at the center hub, let's try and show it. You see how one side has a higher collar around here. Let me bring it up to the light a bit. That's a pretty low collar. Look at the raised collar. So it's very important, critical, that that raised collar goes toward the longer side of this 1-2 hub. So here's the correct setup, where you have a taller collar on this side matching the taller outer collar. But it's pretty easy to get them wrong when you take these apart, and if someone's put one of these in a gearbox like this, that's not gonna work. Lucky I found it, because I was going to clean this up and put it in, not really thinking, well, why would that be? But this would have been a disaster for this gearbox, and I'm glad I elected to look for my really good one here and get it all cleaned up. Another little tidbit, these reverse gears, the late ones, have this spacer area machined into them here. What that does is when you shift this, it sort of prevents it from kind of reaching the end of the shift. But if somebody is aggressive and leans on the shifter, it's going to try to push that a little bit further. So I like these spacers, but what happens with these gears is they went to this 2-piece bushing design, and I've seen these bushings work their way out, and that's not good either. So this is a solid bushing one, but I elected to add just a spacer here equaling this, so that leaning on this when it's in reverse won't result in that gear inching over and grinding itself on this slider, this outer reverse slider right here. You see these chewed up when the linkages wear, or somebody's leaning on the unit, leaning on the shifter, while you're already in gear, causing that to overextend. So that's a little trick there. I think I'll do that from now on these when I use the good older solid bushing gears. More details. One last thing here, I go to some trouble to put this in. If you don't engage, here's another one that's out of one. This little collar that the spring goes inside, if you don't put that in and locate this as far as the range of travel it has, you'll have a mystery as you're trying to check out your shift linkage. Because this inner collar moves around, loses that slot, and then the lug in there wobbles all kind of places, and you'll find yourself out of engagement with the unit in gear, and you'll get stuck trying to figure out, well, it went there, how do I get it back? The key is to have this collar here in place, located by its little short, looks like a spacer that the spring goes into, and that engages the slot and keeps the range of operation from the outside where you want it. All right, we'll continue to show all these great little details.